Good morning. As I spent time this week thinking about this beautiful miracle, the wedding of Cana, this first of the beginning of Jesus' public ministry and the foreshadowing of Eucharist and the changing of water and wine and a new kind of church, I couldn't help but think about so many of the other miracles that he performed. Did you know, depending on which scholar and which source you find, there are somewhere between 37 to 42 distinct miracles attributed to Jesus in the four Gospels. Of course, sometimes we hear the same story of a miracle proclaimed several times. Multiple Gospels refer to them. But 37 to 42 distinct moments of miraculous encounter. And there are generally two categories of miracles that take place. The first has to do with physical health or well-being. So things like healing lepers or healing of the man born blind or exorcisms and even resurrection, as we see in the beautiful story of Lazarus, who was raised from the dead. The second category has to do with Jesus being in harmony with nature. Things like walking on water, calming a storm, and yes, changing water into wine, the story that we have today. I would suggest there's a third kind of miracle that has to do with interior conversion. We think about the woman at the well, the longest conversation Jesus has with anyone in the Gospels, where no physical healing or no natural phenomena event happens, and yet something miraculous happens inside of her, an internal conversion. Many of the miracles we encounter result in this kind of transformation, but it's generally understood that when we talk about miracles, we're talking about something of an extraordinary external act, not internal. So as I was looking for some common characteristics throughout the miracles we see in the four Gospels, I found that there are three that really caught my attention. The first thing that all of Jesus' miracles have in common is he performed them completely freely. There was no quid pro quo, no charge, no conditions, simply an act of generosity that was creative love flowing towards the person receiving the miracle. Even at the wedding feast at Cana, presumably, where he was enjoying a nice dinner with his friends, maybe a little bit of dancing, telling the same stories and jokes that we all tell whenever we're at weddings together. He didn't say to his mother, oh gosh, just let me finish my dinner. This has to wait. Or, okay, I'll do this, but they're going to have to pay us. Freely given. Second, the thing that is common to many of the miracles is that somebody else in the scenario has a moment of prophetic courage. Think about the story of the 10 lepers who were cured. Jesus sent them away saying, don't tell anyone what you have seen or heard, and they went away. But one of them went to the temple and he told the priest what had happened to him. That was an act of prophetic courage. When I'm using this phrase, prophetic courage, what I mean is the witnessing to an event that somehow illuminates or reveals the nature of God in our midst. That's why it's prophetic. When that former leper went back to the temple and told the priest what had happened, he was basically saying to them, I have seen the face of God. When the woman with the hemorrhage shares with Jesus the reason she touched his cloak, because she knew he had the power to heal, that was an act of prophetic courage. She was saying something about him in front of others. And today, of course, at the wedding at Cana, we have Mary, who has a moment, one of many throughout her life, of prophetic courage. She says to Jesus, in front of other people who would be guided by her identification of who he is, she says to him, they have no more wine. And then she turns to the waiters and she says to them, do whatever he tells you. And because she knows that they will be guided by what she is saying, it's an act of prophetic courage. She is opening their eyes to his identity as Messiah, as God. And the third characteristic of miracles that I have observed in reading about them this week, and this one is most meaningful for me, all of the miracles take place in the context of community. And why this matters to me is because it's yet another example from Jesus that models for us how we are to be. The older I get, the more convinced I am that religion and spirituality don't serve God if our objective is to be more God-like. What if the revelation of God through the miracles that Jesus performed is meant to help us be more human? Jesus doesn't hide away when he performs miracles. He doesn't take people aside and do it quietly. He allows the miracle to unfold in the presence of large groups or gatherings, sometimes really large, like when he inspired the miracle of the loaves and fishes that fed thousands. People are always watching and listening. And I think what he's trying to do for us is to offer the suggestion that we can also do miraculous things for one another. It's often the case as well that his miracles that are performed are somehow to right a perceived or actual injustice, very often having to do with belonging. So my personal conclusions, after spending some time this week thinking about this, is that miracles are in no way the sole purview of God. Each of us has the ability to give freely of our gifts, our compassion, our accompaniment, our financial resources and support, our prayer. All of these can serve as miracles to the people who receive them. And we are called, like Jesus, to offer them with no anticipation of receiving anything in response. We can also summon our prophetic courage. We can be the healed leper who goes back into the temple, into the church, and announces the nature and being of God to others. We can be like Mary, who says to others, pay close attention for what's about to happen. This is important. God is right here in our midst in this moment. And finally, we don't have to be afraid that offering miracles is something that should be done like a lamp hidden under a basket or behind a veil. The fact that Jesus wanted his miracles to be seen as a sign meant that they are to be shared in community, and we might encourage one another to be miracle makers for others. Today's second reading, we have this beautiful letter from Paul that reminds us that each of us is given unique gifts to be used in service of the Spirit. Those gifts are the fuel for the miracles each one of us can offer the world. And when we do, God will rejoice, as we are promised in the reading from Isaiah. We cannot wait for God to be the only one who performs miracles. God needs each one of us to be miraculous for all of creation. So this week, inspired by the memory of Dr. King and the miracles that he inspired for the world, may each of us be blessed with miraculous moments, a shared witnessing of a gift that is freely given out of love, out of compassion, and a shared witnessing of the power of God, who is always so close to us as we walk day by day. God bless you.